This is your reminder that the BBC has yet to address the consistent transphobic leanings in its news coverage, and while the team behind Doctor Who is not connected to this in any way since this is a BBC-owned property, I'm going to keep pointing it out until the problem gets resolved. Links in a pinned comment below if you don't know what I'm talking about. I'll stop saying it when it stops being a problem. You know, I made a joke to Jesse Gender, I think a couple of weeks ago, that I might actually get ticked off if this is better than the accompanying Doctor Who seasons. At the time I said that, it did not occur to me that that might actually be possible. And here we are. The war between the land and the sea. So this is the Doctor Who spin-off miniseries that I, for one, was not excited about. Doctor Who spin-offs are not something I've ever really been excited about at this point. I really have no reason to be. Because what did we get? We got one amazing season of Torchwood and a sporadic number of really good episodes amongst a whole bunch of bleh. I know some people really hold Sarah Jane Adventures close to their heart, but by the time that started, I was just too old. It was aimed at a younger audience and it just did not appeal to me. Seemed fine. It just wasn't going to work for me. Class, I still haven't even gotten around to seeing. So just the idea of Doctor Who spin-offs in general don't excite me. And it was not helped by the fact that this was being worked on simultaneously with the two seasons that we ended up getting, which immediately made me worried because I'm like, you're splitting your time and resources across all this, really, at the same time? Okay. How much this did or didn't impact the production of either end, who knows? This was conceived of by Russell T Davies, but it is being heavily written by Pete McTighe, whose run on Doctor Who is mixed. He started out with Kerblam, which was Kerblam was rough. It was a fun episode until you thought about it, and the implications real bad. Then Praxius, which was decent, was good enough. Then Lucky Day, which I actually did think was one of the better episodes of season 2. So he was on the upswing from a rough starting point, but not exactly a writer that was going to get me thrilled by his name at the very least, based off what I'd seen from him up to now. And we have a miniseries dealing with a confrontation between the humans and what have historically been called the Sea Devils. We are now calling Homo Aqua. Throwing a whole bunch of the unit characters in there, and my response to all this was just like, fine, whatever. It can't be worse than the last time there was something with the Sea Devils, so sure, why not? Well, the first 2 episodes are out, at least in some places, and this is so much better than it has any business being. Now, let's not pop the champagne quite yet. Miniseries, or indeed anything that is serialized like this, where it's a continuous narrative being told over the whole thing, lives and dies on ending well. So while I am going to largely be praising this thing, I do want to put out there some caution. Not saying that you can't get excited for where it's going to go or how well it's going to do. It's off to a very strong start. But I am just going to say, don't count your chickens before they hatch, because people won't admit to this, but the first episode of Marvel's Secret Invasion had potential. And we all saw where that ended up, or actually, if you were very lucky, you didn't see. The point being that things can start out well, but fall apart later. Never assume that a thing that starts good will stay good. But starting good, at the very least, sets you up for success. It's just a question of whether you nail it in the end. And hopefully they do, because this is a real solid start. there's a lot that I like about this. First of all, can I just start with saying it just looks really good? Owing a lot to practical locations and especially some of the early stuff, like shot on the beach. Like there's this one shot straight down, like off a cliff into the water. Gorgeous. Wow, this show and this property looks so much better when they film real stuff instead of going and shooting in the freaking volume. Look, I understand that the special effects were better in the last 2 seasons. I also think they were heavily over relied on. Like I look at this and I look at Boom, and I know Boom was a heck of a bigger production, and this looks so much better. How many people did I just tick off because Boom is one of the better liked episodes? Sorry, I don't think it looks great. It's a pretty good episode. I don't think it looks especially good. And knowing all the trouble they went through to film that doesn't help. But anyways, regardless, it looks good. There is a very good drawing of tension out in the shots that are chosen, how long they linger, what they focus on. And it certainly helps that the performances are as strong as they are. Russell Tovey is our front and center character. He is basically an ordinary guy who has stumbled into a very fateful situation because he is a member of UNIT, but he's a transport guy. You know, he arranges for the cabs. He rents the vehicles. That's his job. He has no security clearance. But because of a little bit of a mix-up, because the person who was supposed to be present wasn't available, he ends up being there to be the civilian witness for an encounter between UNIT and Homo Aqua. Let's touch on the name real quick. I'm totally fine with this. I'm sure I have zero doubt that there are certain kinds of your viewers out there making a whole thing out of it, like, oh, we can't even call them sea devils now. This is so woke. Okay, first of all, ships already sailed. We did the exact same thing with the Silurians way back with Matt Smith, which is supposedly when people who complain about this sort of stuff still liked the show. So, like, this ship sailed. If we did it to the Silurians, we should be doing it for the Sea Devils as well. They can both have a revised name. And, like, let's be honest, Sea Devils does sound like a slur. And I don't mean that in a grasping at pearls, but, like, if you're about to enter into peace negotiations, you should probably have a more proper name for them than something that, at least the last time we saw any members of this species, they responded to kind of badly. So that's fine. And I kind of love the little joke that gets made out of it. There's this little thing where Russell Barclay is the character's name. Barclay's kid, Kirby, makes a little joke like, we're calling them Homo Aqua, and their parents just being sort of snickering about it because for them that's gay water. And then they have a little joke out of it and like, yeah, that was the problem. We let you have too much gay water because their kid's non-binary. Zero attention drawn to that. It's just they, them pronouns being used like they're totally normal. Nobody makes a thing. No attention drawn to it. Never actually pointed out explicitly. Awesome. Love it. Terrific. And I like the family dynamic a lot. It helps that the 3 performers involved, Barclay, his ex-wife, and his kid, they all have good performance chemistry, but also I just like the setup in general. It actually gets specifically called out as an amicable divorce between Barclay and his ex-wife. Like, that's just something we don't see a lot of because, the drama is in a real heated divorce where things either ended really badly or one person didn't want it to end and still wants to reconcile and that's not the case here. Like, they're divorced. It was amicable. They seem to get along fine, but obviously there's some tension when things aren't going the way that they should, but that's also kind of valid. Like, it's a good dynamic. It's a healthy divorced family. Yay! That's nice to see. And I think, again, integrated just very smoothly into the whole thing. It's just a fact of this dude's life. And I think it's well done and well presented there. So we have yet another redesign on our creatures here. And it's pretty solid. It is just evocative enough of the very turtle-like look that the classic version of this creature had, which was more or less unchanged when we saw them in Legend of the Sea Devils, which was the last time they appeared. And it is sort of cited like this specific variant has not been seen before. So like they kind of cover their bases there. But I think they do a good job of evoking the classic look, but giving us something a bit more distinct, a bit different, a bit sleeker, because it's not this big bulky suit that a performer has to move about in. So I think that is handled pretty well. I really liked the scene early on where Barclay sees this body of one of these creatures, and it's funny to me, and I feel like the show did this very self-aware. It's funny that you have people like the general and some other actual ranking members of unit, having this moment of saying, well, we'll call them this. Well, it should be this. Well, we're going to call them this. But just like we can't call them Sea Devils anymore. And they're having this discussion, and they're like, it's about respect or whatever. And they're saying it just while looking up casually at a dead body that's just hanging there. Not even the dignity of being like laid out. It's just strung up. And taking the moment for Barclay when he is alone with it to just himself real quick, which even says later he's not even religious, it just felt like something he should do. And that being the key that makes these particular versions of this creature fixate on him. I'll come back to Salt, who is our ambassador from the Kingdom of the Sea. I'll get back to her. I am going to use her pronouns for her, but again, I'm going to address all that a little bit later. So we have an encounter, a fresh encounter, and dealing with this particular element, because with the Silurians, or Homo reptilia, if you prefer, the thing with them is they obviously have a claim to the land in terms of they were here before humanity, and there is always tension there. That's the whole basis by which those creatures have always been used. Now with these ones, with Homo aqua, there is the additional tension. Not only were they here before humans, but we've been actively destroying their habitat in a way that it would not be difficult to describe it as an active, constant assault on their home. And whether we knew there were intelligent beings down there or not, it was something that, like, collectively as a species, we knew we were doing it. So the tension is very real and feels very earned. And the pacing as a whole has been really good these first two episodes, with the buildup of the translation and like, wait, hold on, and needing to like actually ask them to repeat something so they could get a more accurate translation of it. I love the little notions like that, but it also makes sense that they kind of drop that later so they can have a more active conversation. But I like that it was there. It felt really thought out. It felt like we're not going to make it the easiest thing. It's not just a matter of like, oh, this thing has gone through this machine and it spits out a perfect translation. No, the stuff isn't perfect. It can't be. It's made by people. Of course, it's not going to be perfect. And they're like, no, wait, that's not it. And they have to correct. And with the general, I actually really like the performance on the general. He is a really good blend. Like, you can tell he's dealt with some things like this before, but at the same time, he is taking this very seriously. It's not quite to like Men in Black level where it's like, it's just another Tuesday, which is a thing that I like in these kinds of things often. But I think for something trying to have as much weight as this, you don't want him to be too casual about it. He really does bring a sense of gravitas, but at the same time, you can tell he's been around the blocks a few times. He's seen this. And that actor as well has been in Doctor Who before. No connection between the characters that he has played before and this character. So far as I can tell, which is fine. They're allowed to reuse people. Plus, he's done voices for Big Finish. He's part of the Doctor Who family. I feel very secure in saying that. But I think that he does a really good job. The unit members that we get, all solid. I understand why they held off on the Vlinks on this one. That might have been a little bit too campy for, again, the tone that they're going with this. But Kate is is doing a real great job. Like, I could not help but really smile when she said that line that, like, they're having such a hard time keeping Barclay on script. She's like, "Oh, it's like trying to wrangle the doctor." And it kind of is, but maybe for a slightly different reason, or maybe for a similar reason. Because, you can't wrangle the doctor because the doctor's going to do whatever the doctor feels like doing. What Barclay is doing is connecting just as two individual beings when he's intended to be a representative and a diplomat, which he's just not. And I love Barclay's reaction to, having had those first sets of negotiations. At the end of the first episode, they said, we want to talk to him. And he's just like, okay. And great place to end the first episode. But then, like, after he does it, it doesn't like go to his head necessarily, but he feels the weight of what he's doing, and he feels like he's doing something really important. And the way he played those feelings was really good. Again, some great bonding moments with him and his family. So much really, really great stuff with all of them. One thing in regard to Unit that I am gonna... They are continuing to have the romance between Kate and Colonel Ibrahim. Look, I am at a point in my life where there are certain power dynamics that it's very difficult for me to buy as romantic or feel comfortable seeing them portrayed as romantic. A superior engaging romantically and sexually with a direct subordinate who answers directly to her, which is clearly still the case, is not okay. It's not okay. That's a completely borked power dynamic. I don't like it. I don't like that they're doing it. That having been said, I do appreciate that when they're on site, she doesn't seem to be giving him any special treatment. She is just addressing him the way that she would regardless. So I do appreciate that. I'm hoping they don't do this thing where, like, he starts to get annoyed, or we find out that she's actually a little bit harsher on him now than she used to be because she has to, like, make it seem like he's not getting special treatment. Like, I want as little focus on this freaking relationship as possible. I don't want it to exist. It does. Minimum, please. Minimum amount of this thing. So let's talk about Salt. So Salt, our ambassador from the sea. I like Gugu and Bethra. I've liked her since I saw San Junipero, which is my favorite episode of Black Mirror. She's doing real good in this. There's a lot of force and power in her delivery, and she can soften just enough when interacting with Barclay that you buy the connection that the two of them are building, but it never goes properly soft because she is there with incredibly valid and pretty justified anger. And that is always present to some degree. I really like how she's delivering that. I really like the design that they have on her, as unsexualized as possible. They've got her in this armor, completely flat chest, minimal indication of secondary or even primary sex characteristics on her. It really is just the face and the voice. And we have that moment where the voice deepens and the face becomes more masculine. And I am on the fence on this moment. There's what I'm hoping it is meant to indicate. Then there's the thing that I really hope it's not meant to indicate. And we will see if the show ever clarifies which is the case, and if so, when. So what I am hoping that is an indication of when the face becomes more masculine and the voice deepens is that she is doing that to reflect the fact that it is, by and large, men in this room who are, standing up and snapping back at her. It is a response to this clearly male-dominated room that she is basically stepping up to meet them where they're at and project what they're projecting at her right back. That's what I hope that it is about. What I'm afraid of, and what I'm afraid some people are going to conclude if they don't specify that this isn't the case, is that It's just a general, oh, she became male and masculine and increased testosterone levels to become more aggressive and like more powerful and more dangerous. And you know what? Right now, with all the stuff out there about trans people and the notions that, you know, well, they're still men and they're aggressive and they're dangerous and, you know, they're more innately powerful. Don't enforce that. Don't. I really hope that they clarify that it's either the first thing that I said or something else I haven't thought of. Right now I'm reserving judgment in the hope that they don't just leave it as is and leave the possibility of people to interpret that the show is at all implying because she became aggressive, she became male because men are aggressive, even if they look like women at other times. I really hope that we get enough context that takes that interpretation off the table. So, fingers crossed on that. I also think that the messiness of the global implications of these kinds of negotiations is being handled pretty well, too. You know, the competing interests of different nations, the fact that some are prepared to kind of be underhanded right off the bat, or the fact that, you know, even business interests are, you know, worming their way into this because we have that tech from Unit who, you know, smuggles some of the tissue samples and is promised citizenship. Acknowledging, you know, the sort of strong arming that can happen for somebody in a vulnerable position like that, I think is a good way to do it, because a lot of times you know, somebody on the inside kind of betraying like that is either, you know, just about money, which yeah, that happens, or they're holding some grudge against the people who they're betraying. But I like here, especially within the sort of the global framework that they're dealing with, just acknowledging if people feel insecure about their place that they're trying to make their home, they'll do a lot to secure it, kind of understandably so. Not to say that he was right, you know, to give them that tissue sample, but I get it. And again, it feels very well thought out. Oh, and I love the detail that these people who are setting up to undermine and be sure that their interests are protected are eating freaking caviar and no attention drawn to it. Again, just a thing that's being done. It's there. It's not that subtle, but they trust the audience to notice it and realize what that would mean or what that would imply. They don't have to have one of the characters go, pass the caviar. They can just have it there. Again, really well paced, a good amount of trusting in the audience and their ability to follow what's going on. And then, of course, we have the big set piece of the second episode, the reign of trash. Again, I really love this. Just starting from the basic premise of kind of justified. You threw all of this into our home. Take it back. All of it. And is it overly aggressive because of all the harm that it had the potential to do and may well have done? Yeah. But how much harm has happened to them? Like, her eggs didn't hatch. She lost her children. Again, does it make her right to have taken it to that level? No, not necessarily, but boy, do I get it. There is such a strong sense of righteousness, of earned righteousness from her and the actions that these creatures are taking up to this point. Oh, another small detail that I really like. You have the car with Barclay's ex-wife and his kid, and it's trying to get to where he is, and like this, I think it's a safe, like crushes down on it. The kid is sent out, you know, just to run, and the ex-wife stays for a minute to make sure that there isn't something that she can do for the driver. And that's not like a plot point. It's not like something good or bad happens to her because she did that. It's just a thing she took a second to do because she's that kind of person. Again, this tiny little moment of characterization just slipped in there. So good. This is off to such a good start. I'm just going to list a handful of other little small things that I really liked. I love how proud Kirby is of their dad. I love that you can tell even before he confirms it later that Barclay was thinking about his kid when admitting flat out that we all played our part in this. We helped direct the planet and our kids know it and they've been telling us and we aren't listening to them. Why aren't we listening to them? There is such a wonderful honesty and sincerity and just desperation. Like, he wants a better world for his kid, and his kid wants that too, but the world is set up to not give them that. And I love how messy things are, and I love the intensity of the demands, like no travel in water. In the sky, we consider that to be part of our domain, which is a little bit of a stretch, but makes a certain amount of sense when you take into account that especially if it is over the oceans, the clouds, the rain, the breathable air, it's all in cycle with the ocean. So it makes a certain amount of sense. And to think about, what it would mean for truly cutting off everybody, that's huge. And that's kind of a terrifying thought. But again, also, I get why they would demand that. And dealing with the messiness of all the competing interests, because she's asking for a world that we have never conceived of. And she's asking for it yesterday. And the way that cranks up the heat without making her seem fully unreasonable. Because, yes, from the perspective of humanity, like, you cannot expect us to be able to do this, in this quick turnaround. But from her perspective, she even says flat out, why should we endure this for a day longer for how long you've been doing this? And she's right. Like, why should, especially if they have the power to actually push back, why should they accept any continued destruction of their waters, their ocean, and their people while these negotiations are going on? Why should they accept that? And again, is it potentially a stance that is a little bit too harsh for negotiations? Yeah, potentially. But again, feels very earned. And I'm really appreciating that because, oh boy, I've talked, especially lately, about how so done I am with the whole thing of the antagonists of a story have an understandable, relatable, or justified goal or motive for their actions, but they go too far. Doctor Who itself stepped in this in the worst frickin' way relatively recently with Interstellar Song Contest. Holy frickin' crap. Oh, the more I even think about that episode, the angrier it makes me. But this so far, 2 episodes in, we'll see how it manages. But so far, it is doing an incredibly good job of somebody taking what are, on paper, in a vacuum, extreme actions against humanity, but that feel really earned, really justified. It's threading the needle really well right now, and hopefully it'll continue to. I think the only other note that I have that isn't a complaint but is like a caution is like there's this real quick thing that like sort of hints that Barclay's ex-wife is like kind of jealous. I do not want to see either her being jealous of Salt becoming a plot point, and relatedly, I do not want to see a romantic entanglement between Barclay and Salt to become a plot point, because I think they are connecting incredibly well as is. That will be gilding the lily. I think that is incredibly unnecessary for how strongly these two characters are playing off each other and are already connecting and relating to each other on the similarities they already have. Please don't have them fall in love. Have them come to an understanding. Have them care about each other, but don't have that manifest as romantic entanglements, please. I have Shape of Water. I love Shape of Water. I don't need this to become Shape of Water, okay? So that's something that I'm like, it's fine right now, but just There's a direction I don't want you to go. I want that clarity on the gender projection from Salt, as to exactly why she did that, just so that we aren't left with a possible really harmful interpretation, which, if that is what it is, unintentional, I'm sure, still not great. And the romantic stuff, I'd say just stop. They won't. It's a thing. Anyways, the war between the land and the sea. Dang good start. Keep it up. What did you think about these first 2 episodes? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Those all help. Don't worry too much about it, though. What I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. Now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lafulla, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Oliver B, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Ulrich, Twilord, Mystic Shadow, Tracy Scrabbit, Pau Barabajoggle, Sir Didymus is my favorite, and shout-outs to some random folks from the lower tiers. Thanks to Callum Ray, 3 Muppets in a Trench Coat, and Alex Fireheart. If you want to hear me thank you by name, you can check out the reward tiers on the Patreon. You guys were pretty good today. Thank you.